Imagine waking up, pouring coffee, and wondering how much money actually qualifies someone as rich in 2026. Not the flashy social media version where a rented car and a staged photo mean wealth, but the real kind. Money that changes daily decisions, removes constant financial fear, and buys genuine freedom. The short answer is, it depends. The longer answer is what this video is for, to cut through the noise and show the real thresholds that separate ordinary from comfortable, comfortable from well-off, and well-off from untouchable. I'll give you numbers, explain the math behind them, show how region and age warp those numbers, and give concrete examples so you can see where you stand and what it would take to move up. Start with income, because it's the doorway most people notice first. If you care what it feels like to have breathing room month to month, income matters. If you care about long-term independence, the ability to stop trading hours for dollars, net worth matters more. For income percentiles, the most recent practical estimates put the top 10% of U.S. households at roughly $250,000 in annual household income. The top 5% lands around the mid-300s of thousands, and the top 1% of households shows up near the mid-600s. These are national thresholds, not city-adjusted rents or cost of living numbers, and they move with wage trends and tax year reporting cycles. What does each income tier feel like in day-to-day life? At the top 10% income level, a household typically can afford nicer housing markets in many metro areas, save consistently and pay for private lessons or modest overseas travel without collapsing the monthly budget. That level makes it possible to save 15–20% of income if the household chooses restraint. But many in this bracket spend as fast as they earn, and that's why income alone isn't the full story. Move to the top 5% and you're looking at a life where choices multiply. Better schools, safer neighborhoods, more reliable access to private healthcare options, and the ability to buy investment properties without exhausting cash reserves. At the top 1%, the monthly inflows are so large that ordinary bills feel like rounding errors. The real question becomes tax planning, asset allocation, and risk management. Now shift from income to net worth, because net worth is the bedrock that determines whether a high income turns into durable freedom or just a higher recurring bill. Net worth is assets minus liabilities, and it's where people either build real security or live on borrowed time. For context, recent analyses and compilations of Federal Reserve and other public data suggest the threshold to be in the top 10% of net worth is in the low to mid-millions. Numbers like $1.6 million to $1.9 million circulate depending on methodology and how you treat home equity versus liquid assets. The top 5% starts to climb into several millions, and the top 1% requires double-digit millions to be comfortably in that bracket. Different compilations give slightly different cutoffs because the distribution of wealth is skewed and driven by age, geography, and asset mix. Why the range? 2 reasons. First, the way researchers count net worth varies. Some include owner-occupied home equity the same way across all ages, while others adjust for homeowners versus non-homeowners. Second, age matters a lot. A 30-year-old with $500,000 is rare and pushes them high among peers. But that same balance for a 60-year-old is below where peers usually sit. Publications that smooth across age groups create a national cutoff that's useful for headline comparison, but you should interpret any public threshold with the lens of your age and region. Let's get specific and practical. If you want a single-sentence target for the top 10% by net worth in 2026, think roughly $1.6–1.9 million across the U.S. That range puts you into the national 90th percentile on most aggregated data sets. To be in the top 5% nationally, household net worth generally sits somewhere between about $3.5 million and $4 million, depending on sampling and the date of the survey. For the top 1%, A commonly cited floor sits between about $11 million and $14 million, again a range because of data timing and market swings. These are not exact bricks you must place, but rather practical fences to orient strategy and expectations. Why does $1.06 feel like a meaningful threshold? Because when your investable assets cross roughly the mid-seven figures, the returns start to produce noticeable optionality in a way smaller balances don't. Assume a balanced portfolio returning 5–7% net in a low to medium volatility environment. At 1.6M, a 5% return is $80,000 a year, a number that for many households covers a mortgage in good neighborhoods, child-related costs, and a decent amount of discretionary spending. That income stream grows with compounding. At 3.5M, 5% is $175,000, enough to support a comfortable lifestyle in almost any U.S. metro without touching principal if taxes and spending are managed. At 11M, 5% is $550,000. That's the kind of money that frees someone from needing employment and also funds a multi-home, travel-heavy lifestyle plus substantial giving. The math here is simple and relentless. Asset-based times return equals economic freedom. But numbers alone mislead if you ignore liabilities and lifestyle. Someone with a $2M net worth that's 90% tied up in an illiquid small business stake or a property bubble can be less free than someone with $900K diversified in stocks, bonds, and cash. Liquidity and diversification matter. $1 million in a retirement account looks different if it's locked until age 59 versus being a mix of taxable brokerage accounts and cash. The wealthy manage both sides. They build net worth and tune the mix so liquidity supports opportunity and risk. Regional variation is huge and unavoidable. To be top 5% in rural Midwest is far easier than to be top 5% in New York City metro. High-cost cities lift income and net worth thresholds dramatically. For instance, earning $350 in a low-cost area might put you comfortably inside the top 5% regionally, while in some coastal metros the same income barely cracks the top 10% locally. That's why national thresholds are essential for broad comparison, but local planning must use local numbers. If you live in a high-cost urban cluster, aim higher to capture the same practical freedom. Researchers and local data aggregators show state-by-state differences that can move required income thresholds by hundreds of thousands per year. Age dynamics are another layer. Younger cohorts have systematically lower median net worths because they've had less time to accumulate and bear student debt burdens disproportionately. That means a 35-year-old in the 90th percentile for their age might have a net worth requirement far below the national 90th percentile. Conversely, someone in their late 50s needs far more to be in the overall top decile. So when you hear top 10% requires 1.6M, ask, for whom? For whom in age, region, and life stage? The next gap to stress is the difference between looking rich and being rich in reality. Social media and easy credit let people signal wealth without the underlying base. Leasing designer items, rotating expensive phones annually, and renting high-end apartments for the gram is performance. Performance collapses when a shock comes. Wealth is what survives a major disruption, a job loss, a medical expense, or a market shock. A household with $250K income and $50 in liquid assets is fragile. A household with $150 income and 1.2M in investable assets is resilient. That goes to the heart of net worth versus income. Taxes and effective income are crucial in the real-world math of rich. High incomes are taxed at higher marginal rates and often by state taxes too. The top 1% by income face complex tax planning, municipal bonds, tax loss harvesting, charitable strategies, and trusts become decisions that materially change disposable income. Your headline salary matters less than after-tax and after-expense income. Someone earning $600K in a high-tax state who spends $400K a year might be less free than someone earning $400K in a low-tax state who saves and invests systematically. If you want to join higher tiers, include tax planning in your route, because effective after-tax returns compound into net worth over time. Let's put concrete examples in front of you. Example A. A dual-income couple each earning $125K. City living, mortgage, 2 kids. Their household income is $250K, top 10% national by income. If they spend aggressively, live in a high-rent neighborhood, and carry consumer debt, their net worth can remain under $200K for years. Example B. A single person earning $160K, living below means, automating 30% of income into diversified investments and a retirement account, and refraining from costly credit. They may reach net worth near the top 10% sooner because saving rate and compounding beat headline income in the long run. These contrasting examples show how behavior converts income into wealth or drains it away. What about a laddering plan to move up? If your goal is to enter the lower rung of the top 10% net worth within 10-15 years, focus first on saving aggressively while building skills that raise income. Capture employer retirement matches, minimize high-interest debt, and invest in low-cost diversified funds. Put at least 20-30% of gross household income into long-term investments if the budget allows. That rate accelerates accumulation. Use leveraged moves cautiously. A mortgage can be a tool for wealth if the house is affordable and you don't overextend. If you can consistently save $2,000 a month and invest it at an average return of 6-7%, you'll add roughly $300-400K of invested capital in a decade thanks to contributions and compounding. That's meaningful progress toward the million-dollar range. How fragile is the top 10%? Consider that many people in high-income brackets still experience stress because they mistime spending or carry consumer credit. A single health emergency or a recession can expose fragility if liquid savings and diversification are missing. One of the lessons from recent data is that a decent share of households reporting six-figure incomes still admit to financial strain because of debts or mortgage burdens. That explains the paradox of high earner but living paycheck to paycheck. So when you think of rich, demand proof, liquid savings, diversified investments, and a sustainable cash flow model. For those asking what it takes to be unambiguously in the top 1% nationally, the combination of multiple income streams, significant business equity, real estate, and portfolio scale matters. The millionaires are common enough now that millionaire alone is not a guaranteed ticket into the top decile. It's a threshold that used to mean exclusivity and now often marks the beginning of comfortable wealth. The truly rare club at the 1% level involves multi-million net worths and often entrepreneurial ownership stakes and complex tax strategies. When you reach that level, the conversation moves to preserving and transitioning wealth across generations, trusts, family offices, and philanthropic vehicles. One last practical point. Speed of accumulation is not purely about how much you earn today. It's about the product of 3 levers: savings rate, investment return, and time. Increase any one, and you shorten the time to a threshold. The fastest lever most people can control is savings rate. Increase savings from 10% to 30% of gross income and watch horizons compress dramatically. Improve the investment mix for slightly higher net returns without reckless risk-taking, and you compound faster. Time is the multiplier that makes disciplined decisions look simple in hindsight. To summarize in actionable terms, if you want to be in the national top 10% by income, aim for household income around $250K per year as a practical marker. If your goal is top 5% income, target roughly $335K. If you want to be among the top 1% earners, target the high 600s at minimum. For net worth, Use 1.9 million for top 10% as a working target, 3.4 million for top 5%, and roughly 14 million for top 1%, recognizing regional and age variations. I've pulled these ranges from median and percentile compilations that combine public surveys and market data. The specific sources and how they measure holdings cause some spread in the numbers. Numbers change and markets move, but the structural truths hold. Net worth beats headline income for long-term freedom. Liquidity and diversification matter more than showy purchases. Regional cost and age significantly shift what rich means for you, and the fastest path to serious wealth is A. High savings rate, plus time and prudent investments. If this video helped you see where you really stand, hit the like button so more people can find it. Subscribe for clear breakdowns like this every week, and drop a comment telling me which tier you're aiming for in 2026. I'll see you in the next one.